It is Thursday, July 18th. Let's bring this Water Commission meeting to order, and let's start with a roll call.
Chair Cooney,
Yes.
Vice Chair Snyder,
Here.
Commissioner Keller,
Here.
Commissioner Davis,
Here.
Commissioner Young, Council Liaison Sneddon. Commissioner Young and Council Liaison Sneddon are absent.
Great. Do we have any changes to the agenda today?
Chair, there are no changes to the agenda.
Fantastic. So I believe we're going to move on to the appointment of officers.
All right. As in the past, we've been doing a rotation with the commission here, and as part of that rotation, we have Commissioner Snyder and Keller, who are up for part of that rotation, but of course it's at the discretion of the commission, so I think we're looking for a recommendation and a first and a
I
second
make that
on
motion.
Okay.
I'll second it.
And then roll call.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Commissioner Keller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Snyder,
Yes.
Chair Cooney.
Yes.
Transfer of power is just so seamless. Pay attention, federal government.
No, we're doing a breakdance, I told you. It's in my trunk. That's for after.
All right, I will take it from here. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
All right, and then we have consent items 6A and 6B. Any comments on that before we move to approve?
Move to approve consent calendar.
I'll second.
All right. can we take a
Commissioner
vote, please?
Cooney,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Keller,
Yes.
Chair Snyder.
Yes. And with that, we'll move on to the administrative items, starting with 7A, the Doppler pilot project.
All right, Chair Snyder, thank you. So briefly, we had mentioned this. We've been using this Doppler, started off with just Doppler software, and now we're moving into another phase here. But really exciting platform that's offering us the ability to, I think, interact with our customers, in particular those who are need services from the city. And so we're excited to kind of walk you through what we have been doing, and then, of course, what we're proposing and planning to do as part of a pilot over the next year. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Acosta.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jose Acosta, Water Services Superintendent for the City of Santa Barbara. Today, we will be going over the Doppler project, pilot project that we're incorporating with the city. As Mr. Hagmark explained, we've been using the Doppler platform for quite a few years now, and we're looking into going into a second phase of using it as a daytime pilot. So we'll discuss that as well. Before I get started on the Doppler dispatch pilot project, there are a few staff members that I'd like to recognize that have been involved in this project. Getting this one-year pilot project out, Kat Lee has been vital in assisting me with that. Managing the daytime control 10 services, which is a heavy lift, have been, Jessica Ramirez, Sarah Bertain, and Erica Chan. They've been invaluable on their services by managing control 10. And with the support of management, we've been able to get this Doppler pilot program off the ground and starting to implement it here in the next year. So appreciate that as well. So today's outline, we'll be discussing the overview of the services we provide with our dispatching services here at the city, daytime hours, after hours, weekends, and holidays as well. We'll give you some demonstrations on what the Doppler platform looks like and how we utilize that platform currently and how we plan to enhance those services. We'll go into some discussion on what the Doppler pilot will entail, how that would change the way customers interact with the city, how our staff how it changes the interaction with staff and the city or the customers as well. We'll discuss some of the financial impacts with increasing the services of Doppler as well. And at the end, we'll hopefully have some time for some Q&A. So an essential service that we provide is managing the dispatch services for the city's primarily water resources on a 24-hour basis, 7 days a week. We do that in the daytime services utilizing our city staff. We internally refer to them as Control 10, and we manage those daytime services between the hours of 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. during business days. After hours, we utilize a local vendor who provides those services. They receive the calls. We internally recognize them as Control 14. It's Echo Communications is a company that's local that we use right now. They will provide those services from 3 p.m. to 7 a.m., weekends, holidays, and any other days the city is closed or as needed as well. We do hold these services in high regard to making sure that we provide great customer service, that we're responsive, and that we provide the adequate resources and staffing to manage the situation and ensure that the customer gets what they're looking for when they call in. When we do receive the call, Control 10 will dispatch the appropriate staff and resources. This is inclusive of other city work groups as well. The primary function of Control 10 is to manage and dispatch water resources services, inclusive of water distribution, wastewater collection systems, wastewater treatment, water quality as well. But we do receive other calls from other work groups as well that we have to assess the situation, determine which work group will need to be dispatched, and forward those calls to them throughout the day. In the evening hours, those calls are handled by Echo Communication, and those calls primarily go to our emergency service worker. The emergency service worker works after hours. They respond to all emergency calls that come through with Echo in the evening hours. These numbers on this chart are from calendar year 2023. We pulled a whole year worth of data to provide these figures. The call volume was approximately 1,800 calls during the daytime hours for Control 10 and internal staff to handle, and 1,000 calls for Control 14. Those are all the after-hour calls, weekends, that Echo Communication handles. Currently, Control 14, Echo Communications, they utilize the Doppler platform. The Doppler platform currently is only being utilized to report the incident, track the incident, close the incident. So it's used as an incident management system primarily only. But Doppler does provide other services that we're looking to take advantage of. So that's why we're taking the steps to incorporate the one-year pilot. We did put together some information here on what the metrics look like for the daytime call services. As you can see, 85% of the calls that come in are water resources. So those relate to all the water resources services. We have finance about 1%, facilities. It looks like we have a new division, stats there, but should say streets, so I apologize for that. We receive about 10% calls for them, and we forward those calls onto them and ensure that they respond accurately. Other city work groups and utilities, non-city, those include PG&E, SoCal Gas, or even the underground service marker people that to identify service lines out in the city. And so, as you could see here, primarily, most of those calls are for water resources, but what we want to do is incorporate Doppler to be able to work with these other work groups to get those calls to them in a more efficient manner and a quicker response. We'll go into more detail of how we plan to do that with the Doppler pilot. The next slide is for after hours, Control 14, Echo Communication. These metrics show that the after hours calls. As you can see here, the water resources specific calls does step down a bit to about 65%, and the other work groups, those calls do step up. These calls do, both these numbers do increase during substantial events such as storms, floods, earthquakes, or any other major events that we may have. So next we're going to go into some of the features. I apologize, some of the print on some of the screenshots may be small, but here is a page that shows you the summary of the previous day incidents. So each morning at 6 o'clock, we come in, supervisors, management staff, we receive a summary of all the incidents that come in. It'll give you a timestamp of when the incident came in, the address, and a brief description of what the incident was. As staff, we can click on each incident, go in there, and see the complete report. We'll go into those slides here in a few. So here's an incident response field. You can see that the incident came in, what was the problem description, who received the call, who's taking the lead on this call, the time that the call was dispatched from Echo 14 or from Control 10 to the ESW or to our customer service. Here's a slide where you can see all the complete incident information. You can see the time stamping from when the call was initiated, when the ESW or customer service worker took the call, and then it talks about when they contacted the customer, the communication they had with the customer, when they closed out the call. It also describes if they needed to dispatch other work groups or other staff as well. Some of the functions that it has here is when it dispatches the call, it'll show them a map, it'll show them a building of where the incident is, so that kind of allows the responder to get there, see if they're in the right location. On the right, it gives you more information on what the call was, how the incident was handled, and any closing notes that need to be put into this incident. This is very thorough information, and it allows us as management and supervisor staff to get here in the morning, review this information prior to having to go find the responder and sit them down and try to track them down. We can see here, and if we need any follow-up, we can utilize this as well. So this is a control screen that shows the shift designations. So we have the ESW at top. They're the first responder. They receive the call. Then it provides a call-out log for who's next on the call. For example, the foreman, who's the foreman on call, it'll call them as well. Then the operator 1, operator 2. So this is more of a call-out list for the ESW to be able to utilize it, and it puts it in there. We update this on a weekly basis, monthly basis, depending on how the staff utilizes their on-call services or standby services. This next one is a great tool that we find useful and beneficial, and I think this is going to be beneficial for all city work groups. It's an escalation tree. So the escalation tree will send out the first call, and it's immediately the call goes to the ESW. They must respond immediately. If they do not respond within 10 minutes, it goes to a supervisor. If that supervisor doesn't respond, it gets escalated. And by the time it gets to that person, someone's probably gonna be in trouble the next day. But our staff are very responsive, and so we don't necessarily use this, but this is going to be a great tool for all other city groups as well, so that way we can make sure that everyone's getting responsive or providing responsive services. Another great map that we enjoy is the incident heat map. So for example, if we're having continuous water leaks in a certain area, this heat map will let us know. That'll allow water distribution to assess their system, make any determination if we should probably make major repairs in that area or prioritize that area for repairs. Next, we'll go into the Doppler platform. The Doppler platform, again, as we mentioned, provides many services. We currently use it just for the incident reporting and management system, but we're looking to use it for more services. Some of the metrics and information regarding the Doppler platform, they are a nationwide answering service. They provide services to about 150 plus utilities across the United States, including 11 here in California alone. We've been very satisfied with the incident management page and platform, so we're hoping to build this relationship to have the daytime service calls as well. They provide quick response times to any calls that come in. They should respond. They usually respond within 3 calls, which is approximately 10 seconds to answering the call, initiating the conversation with the customer. Yes.
Sorry, 3 calls or 3 rings?
3 rings.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
3 calls. That's sorry.
No, just it's a difference. I have to call 3 times.
Yeah, within those 3, they'll pick up 1.
Yes, once. No, that's fine. Another benefit and tool that Doppler uses is the use of AI, artificial intelligence. The artificial intelligence is something that we find interesting. It allows the dispatcher to put in information. If it says water coming out of the street, they'll put that into their platform. Artificial intelligence will say, ask this follow-up question, and then you'll be able to diagnose it further. So water in the street may not necessarily mean a broken main line. It could mean a sewer leak, or it could mean water coming from storm drain or something. So we're very interested to see how this works.
This was a big selling point for us, because typically in the past when we've had these conversations, it's really hard to get call dispatchers who understand the technical nature of the work, and especially in this economy, it's hard to keep employees. And so for us, this was one of the more intriguing elements, because you really could bring in someone very limited knowledge initially, and it will prompt them to kind of help get the information that we ultimately need to be able to respond efficiently.
We eliminate the need for city staff to take on the initial call, which calls can last anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes, depending on what the caller is reporting, the follow-up questions, and all the information that the dispatcher needs to assess the situation. So we eliminate that step. So now we free up staff to participate in other work with the city, assist in other areas of work groups as well. The call centers are not located locally. They're located nationally. They have several offices. Their primary offices, I believe, are in Kansas City. And so that does eliminate, if there is a local emergency, a local blackout of communications, power, they would still be able to have power, hopefully, in some of these other areas as well. So that's another benefit.
Do they have backup call centers? Like, if, for example, the one that they're using does not work, do they have a backup?
Yes, they do.
Okay, great. Perfect. That's
Now we'll get into what the pilot program will entail. Again, as we mentioned earlier, currently we use the platform only for incident reporting. We want to incorporate the daytime dispatching services, manage that, see how that goes, so that way we can see if we want to incorporate further areas that Doppler does provide. They do provide after-hour services as well, so we'll see if we can utilize those services based off of the pilot project. We're looking at enhancing customer service by getting quicker response time, getting the work orders into the platform digitally, which increases the response time for the service worker, other work groups as well, eliminating that need to track somebody down. We will be expanding the role of the Doppler platform within the one-year pilot, again, utilizing their daytime dispatch services and call centers. The Doppler call center staff will have expanded roles, and they will be communicating with other work groups. So initially, the first quarter of the pilot program, we're looking at working very intimately with them so that they understand how these calls should be dispatched, what language they're listening for, and understanding who that goes to within the city work groups. So to evaluate the project, we will be looking at doing some customer satisfaction surveys. So we'll take a small percentage of the calls that come in, reach out to those customers and see how they felt about the response that they got from Doppler, the interaction that they had with Doppler, and if they were satisfied with the outcome of the situation. We feel that that's beneficial in ensuring transparency and also maintaining that customer confidence in our services. Again, we'll be looking at the enhanced efficiency, assessing the effectiveness of Doppler call centers, and their ability to distribute the workload to the work groups within the city, making sure that they're doing it in an efficient and accurate manner. The 24/7 incident report platform management will be making sure that we monitor that for the information, making sure that the information is sufficient and accurate for when dispatching our operators and finalizing the reports. We're looking at streamlining customer service, and we'll be evaluating the time needed to receive and make initial contact in the reporting center, or the reporting caller, sorry, with the reporting caller. Benefits to water resources and other city work groups. Again, we'll be improving the chain of communication and response procedures across the city with other work groups. Well, initially, it may be a slow rollout. It may be a lift for other work groups to adapt to the Doppler platform, but we feel it's going to be a benefit to them as well. We will be asking for other work groups to provide a primary contact who will Doppler initially respond to, and then as you saw, those escalation trees, those call-out, how do we want to put the call-out ladders in there as well, but we're hoping that that'll be an improvement for those services as well. It will require internal coordination with Control 10 staff still, water resources staff, Doppler staff, and all other work groups within the city. We're looking to streamline the public requests by getting those out in a more accurate and efficient manner. One thing that we're excited about is the city recently released the CRM, Santa Barbara Connect platform as well, which allows the customers to submit non-emergency requests and also provide feedback for how the services are with the city. There is a possibility that there could be an integration with Doppler and the Santa Barbara Connect platform. So we're excited about that. So
That would allow our customers, for those who really don't want to call, to enter an emergency into it. And then if we have Doppler monitoring it 24/7, then we know we can quickly respond to it if something came in that way.
So can you clarify currently on SB Connect how those requests get integrated into the kind of the workflow of things that the city is managing?
So currently, when we get something, a request through Santa Barbara Connect, whoever the department goes to, I could speak on water resources, we receive the call, we immediately dispatch it, but we send a work order through our OMS system. And then so the OMS system will currently dispatch that service to the customer service worker, the distribution worker, and we'll complete it in there.
So they're somewhat parallel right now. They don't interact right now.
Correct.
And that's only during working days, so not weekends and all that stuff. So if something comes in, we don't look at it till Monday. But yeah, then we have to re-enter that data into our asset management and resource deployment stuff.
So are you sort of calling the AI or the Doppler, like that would sort of replace like one employee during the day? Is that sort of the way is that like one person's?
What we've done right now, we have two positions to kind of tag team that. 'Cause, you know, they have a lot of other duties.
Absolutely.
But right now, we're is holding one position vacant during this pilot to see how that works. So there will be some salary savings to kind of offset this. And then we'll evaluate whether or not, again, it's needed whether it's viable. If it's not, then we have that position still that we could fill.
Because if you look at it, like I was just trying to break down like what the cost savings were or whatever. It's, you know, if you think 24 hours a day with weekends and holidays, forget that overtime pay is a thing, right? You're almost replacing like 4 full-time employees, right? Like nights, weekends, so 24 hours a day, it's like 3 full shifts a day, and then weekends and holidays, you almost get another one out of that with the hour coverage. So for like $114,000 a year, which is the 74,000 plus the 39, then you're basically saving like that salary and benefits with this program? Or am I looking at it wrong?
No, you're looking at it right. There's just a little nuances to that. So right now, we have 2 folks who tag team or
Right,
had
yes.
during the day, and then we had Echo Communications, which is a local company
Right,
that would
okay.
answer phone calls at night and on weekends. And so we're initially, as part of this pilot, just doing daytime, but the vision is that we probably, if it's successful, we'll have them do 24/7. So to your point, there will be salary savings not only in the Echo contract, staff during the day savings as well. So to kind of ultimately, that's what we hope to bring back to you. What is the full, because this, right, the pricing that we have right now is not the full suite
Okay.
of what we'd want. It probably would be more than this because we'll also want the weekend
Okay.
and after-hour coverage. Yeah, but the software, and then it goes back to the software. So this is the call center services. Then there's the software, which we are using right now after hours. So Echo puts this information in the Doppler software. So that was the 39,000 is just using the Doppler software on a 20. But we're not using it currently during daytime for our staff, are we?
No, we do. We
we
put
do.
those into Doppler as
Okay.
well. during
But
the
it's
day.
the 35 that, the after-hours dispatch.
Yeah, so he'll walk through that.
So quick, couple facts on the financial impacts. The total contract for this daytime service plus the platform is $74,500. This includes the current $35,000 that we use just for the after-hours use of the platform, and for the platform use 24/7. So that's inclusive of that. So the new daytime service dispatch cost will be $39,500. So that's the increase in the contract there, based off of just replacing the use of city staff during daytime hours. And as Mr. Hegmark explained, upon completion of the 1-year pilot, we'll be coming back to Water Commission, explaining the successes and maybe if we need to some improvements with Water Commission, getting some feedback, and hopefully by then we'll have a full vision if we want to utilize the Doppler for 24/7 services and take advantage of all the benefits that they can provide for the city. With that being said, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Madam Chair, Just a question. You indicate here that at least 11 agencies in California use it. Have we talked to them, what their experience is, their pros and cons of the system?
I have not talked to them, but we're going off of our experience utilizing the platform. We did have many discussions and express what we're looking for with their platform, and they've reassured us that they can provide those services. And that's what the one-year pilot will hopefully wash out if we need to assess it even further or if we're not satisfied with it.
Yeah, I understood the use of the platform, but once you go to the AI and the weekend and everything, it'd be interesting just to hear from the other agencies.
That's a fantastic recommendation. Yeah, we'll definitely follow up with them and see what they learned,
Yeah.
or what they have learned, where it fits and where it's not working.
Right,
That'd be good.
exactly.
Yeah, thank you. That's wonderful.
I was just wanting to clarify that the expectations that Water Resources is paying for this, even though there is some other city work groups that are using it.
Is the answer yes? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things, and rightfully so. Water Resources has the bulk of them, and it's kind of one of those things. Well, while you're answering, can you just take care of these two? And it's been one of those things that I say it's legacy that we've been doing this for decades, and the question is that still the appropriate means of delivering some of these services? And I think that's what we're hoping to explore here, because it doesn't make sense to have 10 ESWs on call all night for the whole city. So, is there some type of monetary contributions they could make, or is there opportunities, at least during the daytime, that those calls go directly to them instead of us having to filter them and track them down and all that kind of stuff? So we're working through that. Yeah.
Thank you.
You mentioned the language, and so I was wondering, do they provide the service in a few languages?
I don't have an answer to that, but
You go to have
yes,
at least
I will
Spanish
look
and
into that,
maybe
make sure that they have at least Spanish and other languages.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Any public comment?
No public comments.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Acosta.
Thank you.
Thank you. That sounds great.
All right, and now we'll move on to administrative item 7B, the Water Resources Energy Master Plan.
All right. Prior conversations with the commission, I know this is a topic of interest for all of you. Again, we're kind of kicking this off with this contract here, so we can't answer all of your questions, but we are hoping to make sure today, if there are questions that you have, that we certainly have already included those or are thinking in that direction. And then, of course, we will check in with you as we start to gather meaningful information here and bring back for further conversation. I do believe, we haven't quite worked this out yet, but I do believe the Sustainability Committee will also be interested in this. So we'll talk through, maybe there's an opportunity for a joint meeting with the Sustainability Committee. I don't know. So more to come on that. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Rare.
Thank you, Mr. Hagmark. For the commission, my name is Bradley Rare. I'm a principal project manager here at Water Resources, and I'm extremely excited to finally bring this to the commission for introduction today, and that is our Water Resources Energy Master Plan. And so my hope is that this graphic in front of you is very familiar to you all. You've seen it probably in different formats, but I repurposed this graphic to really highlight that, providing water and wastewater service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, is an incredibly energy-intensive process. If you can imagine, we're taking water, raw water sources, treating them to safe drinking water, conveying them to your home, and then retrieving them from your home or business and taking it through the LSR Water Resources Center, meeting regulations before discharging out to the ocean, not to mention our new desalination plant. That requires an incredible amount of energy, on the order of about 14.9 gigawatts or 14.9 million kilowatt hours per year, which equates to, according to our Sustainability Resiliency Department, 4% of the city's overall energy is just consumed through our water resources, which I thought was a pretty impressive stat. Also, with bringing the Santa Barbara Clean Energy Program online, Water Resources has been 100% carbon-free since 2021. That's an important component to what you may be hearing discussed recently about the city's overall carbon neutrality goals of being carbon neutral by 2035. And so we are absolutely doing our part in helping them get there. And that will be important as we move through the slides too, so keep that point in mind. This graphic kind of shows just obviously the depiction of our different sources and our different components of our water system, but like you would search out a restaurant and want to see the dollar signs for how expensive the restaurant is, I've added the energy for how energy intensive our different processes are. So as we forecast kind of what our water resources energy needs are, I will tell you that aside from our desal plant, our water energy consumption at our different facilities is not that highly variable. It's pretty stagnant. In fact, in some cases, it's decreasing as we bring on efficient components. But as you can see from this graphic, we went back and pulled the data for our energy costs over the last several years, and you can see the upward trend across the board for all water resource facilities. And the main drivers there are bringing online the time of use. So you may be familiar at your home with your home energy. 4 to 9 is a window where the grid is stressed, it's in high demand, and the energy companies charge you more than outside of that 4 to 9 window. And so that time of use is an important factor in this. And unfortunately, water resources, we don't just necessarily get to shut off the lights from 4 to 9 and not process or convey water. And so that's one of the main drivers. Overall inflation is also contributing to this upward pressure on energy costs, as well as changing to renewables and carbon-free sources. And so there will be an investment that we need to make in that, and that gets rolled up into, they have to be able to recover those investments. And so long-term, it's going to be a good thing for us, but at the same time, we're seeing some upward pressure on those costs.
So water resources spends about $4 million a year on electricity. And so that just kind of giving you a ballpark of where we stand on that. And, it's what we're kind of seeing and at least anticipating with the electric market is as more and more solar comes on, the price during the day seems to be staying flat or potentially even going down. And as that 4 to 9 window just continues to kind of skyrocket. And I think there's lots of opportunities, and we'll talk a little bit about some of those, just shifting it. But as you're all aware, everybody wants water at the same time that they're using that electricity too. So those are kind of those key times of the day. So trying to figure out how we could prepare for those 4 to 9 windows, maybe outside of that, in a way that could help reduce our footprint.
So before I move on to kind of the actual Water Resources Energy Master Plan, I wanted to highlight the fact that water resources is not foreign to energy projects. We already do have a few, and I wanted to highlight and give you a brief overview of some of these. The picture on the left is our Gibraltar hydroelectric facility, which was originally built in 1985, idled for a few years, and then ultimately recommissioned in 2015. The hydroelectric plant is a 750 kilowatt turbine operating on water conveyed through the Mission Tunnel from Gibraltar. It produces approximately 344 kilowatt hours kilowatt hours per hour, or 8,256 kilowatts per day, running off of about 7.2 million gallons per day of water running through that tunnel and then the penstock. The picture in the middle is our El Estero cogeneration facility, which you may have heard about. It is a public-private partnership with Cal Power, whereas we provide the cogeneration facility biogas from our digesters in exchange for power that we purchase from them, and then ultimately they also have excess heat that we receive for free. And so that excess heat, while it may not be directly electrons or energy, from that perspective, it does help us be more efficient on keeping our digesters heated and at an optimal temperature for production and treatment. What's really cool about this project is because of the energy that we're recovering through that biogas, it actually covers about 50% of the energy consumption at El Estero on an annual basis. So a very helpful project as far as managing our energy consumption, but also that gas historically would have been flared or contribute to greenhouse gases, and so we're finding a great benefit of using it. And then the last but not least one is our most recent success, which is our Cater Battery Energy Storage Project. So we may have talked about this recently, but kind of to remind us about this one, this project was a project directly partnership between our Water Resources Division and our Sustainability, Resiliency, Energy, and Climate Division. And that battery is a 3,727 kilowatt hour battery, which kind of equates, just to give you a ballpark, about 300, it would power about 300 homes for the day. But what that battery does right now is it takes energy off the grid through what's called like a load shifting operation, where we take energy off the grid outside of that 4 to 9 window at cheaper rates when the grid is not as stressed. That battery's charged, and then it's discharged between 4 to 9 in order to offset the higher energy costs. What's really awesome about this project is our Sustainability Resiliency Partnership, they were able to get a self-generation incentive grant to essentially put that battery in at no cost to our water ratepayers. And so, and that battery pack is really helping power our pump station that supplies our regional partners.
Does that power Cater during that 4 to 9 completely, or just is a partial?
It will do the South Coast conduit pumps, so the major pumps that we have, the bulk of our energy usage is moving water out of, treated water out of there, so that's what that does. But as part of this upcoming Cater Resiliency Project, we are looking at solar and potentially another battery that will allow us to island the facility as well. Mm-hmm.
So continuing with this partnership theme, in the past, Water Resources relied on our facilities division to help perform individual energy audits at our facilities in order to get a best idea of how to optimize our operations based on energy. And so that was a very limited resource. And so that has now shifted and changed, and we have our Sustainability and Resilience Department, where they have an entire division of for energy, which is bringing more resources to the city that they can help partner with us. I also wanted to point out that last November, you may recall Dr. Peter Fisk and Dr. Megan Mauder with NAUI. They were here talking to you about all the exciting things that they're working on, and many of which they've been doing for the city through their research. We've had the opportunity to have 3 or 4 NAUI researchers work on our desalination modeling, our water distribution system, and our wastewater treatment plant to get a much deeper understanding of how, as Mr. Hackmark mentioned earlier, how that water energy interface work together, you know, as far as the flow of water coming to the plants or out of the plants, and how does that relate to our energy rate systems that have been developed in the last recent years. And so that's been going on since about 2018. From there, and the work that we've done with that, it's great to have that at each individual facility, but what we've realized is that we really need a cross-facility energy master plan. So, and really, that would be an opportunity to figure out how these different facilities could interact together. You know, Cater and Desal are interconnected through the distribution system, and so, but we don't have a really good idea with the rate systems that are in place. They're very complicated. I don't know if anybody's looked at your SCE bill or your Santa Barbara Clean Energy bill, but I think it takes a PhD just to understand that. And then you layer on that the water components and the treatment impacts. And so really we realized through our work that we've had some great researchers that we need to really do more of a comprehensive analysis of our systems and get a deeper understanding of how that energy water interface work together. And so that was kind of the impetus behind going out for an RFP. This type of work is a little foreign to the city as far as finding some resources out in the industry. And so what we did is we took an RFP process where we initially issued an RFQ to kind of define what we're looking for. And then from there, once we got shortlisted 2 firms, we were able to focus in with those 2 firms and bring on the energy modeling contractors that were working through NAUI as sub-consultants to the ultimately the Hayes and Sawyer team that was selected through that RFP process. Do you want to point that out?
Yeah, we're just going to, and Brad can, Mr. Rare can expand on this. one little takeaway out of we've got a lot that we're working on, but out of the NAUI work has been focused on desal, and in particular, how we could make that work more flexibly with the grid. And so one of the things that we're actually implementing this month and trying to see how it works is we're turning off a third of the desal plant every day from 4 to 9. And it was interesting because when they came in and modeled it, that was far better than turning the facility completely off. It was really interesting once you start building these complex models that utilize the complex rates that we have. That was far easier, and it's way simpler to bring the plant back on into full production versus shutting it all down and then having to go through the whole restart process. So we are experimenting with that this month and hopefully next, and we'll feed that into this model and see if that's something that in particular makes sense, particularly in the summer when those peak rates really shoot up. So kind of excited about that, and hopefully with this project we can develop even more opportunities like that, potentially even at Cater and elsewhere.
Thank you, Mr. Eckmar. So really what we went out with RFQ was a statement of we're looking for somebody to help us identify energy efficiency opportunities in operational modifications and capital improvements that can reduce our overall energy consumption, offer savings to our ratepayers, and really improve the reliability, the resilience, and ultimately affordability of our services to the community. So the four key goals that and tasks that are built into our Water Resources Energy Master Plan scope that we're working with right now is first, as I alluded to earlier, the energy rate structure that we're working within is highly complicated, and we have some of the best water and wastewater treatment operators out there. But they're focused on regulations, they're focused on their science, not necessarily the energy component quite yet. And so this idea of bringing the two closer together and really breaking down the complexities and what we're calling an energy monitoring dashboard, where our consultant that does this throughout the United States can help us bring in key pieces of information to really narrow the gap and empower our operators to really start being able to think about energy and understand the rate structure that they're operating within, so that some of the ideas can come from them. It shouldn't just be coming from a consultant. Hopefully our operations teams can come up with some ideas as well. So that's kind of the first kind of deliverable and key part of this study. And it really starts with kind of baselining all of our current energy usage before we start modeling what we can do with different operations. So the second part is then identifying energy and cost-saving opportunities. And so this is the part that I'm excited about, because often we talk about, what can we do with energy to help offset water resources, and people immediately think solar and battery. We've already got battery, as Mr. Hagmark alluded to. We could add solar to it, and if that's just the boundaries of our thinking, then we're going to be pretty capped in what our ultimate cost savings are. And so what's really exciting about this is this step in the process is going to be looking at load shifting, which is taking our operations and seeing if we can modify them outside the 4 to 9 window, or looking at our monthly operations and seeing, can we shift them around slightly to avoid having every month have the same peak demand charge that shows up on our bill. And you may just be, in the case of the groundwater, our groundwater wells, we're doing preventative maintenance every month, every 30 days, because we know that that's a good practice. But we have the same charge show up every 30 days. If you can shift that plus or minus a couple days and get that within your same billing window, you can save some significant dollars by not really sacrificing any service. So that's an example of like a load shifting operation. A load shedding operation is what Mr. Hagmark mentioned earlier about what we're doing. We're piloting right now at desal, where we are actually reducing the demand during a peak window in order to not have to realize that higher cost for Edison or for Santa Barbara Clean Energy to generate or deliver a higher load during that time window. And while there might be a certain I don't want to say loss, but a reduction in production for a certain amount of time, our overall goal is to make sure that our ratepayers and our customers don't know that at all. They are going to continue getting the safe water and wastewater services that they're already used to. And so evaluating the data, baselining it, and really getting an understanding of what's possible from that. And then there's also this demand response program that's out there, which the city entered into a few years ago with a company called Enelex, where, and the desal is essentially what we're, kind of tongue-in-cheek calling a paper battery, where we have so much demand for desal or for energy at desal that if we take that offline for a certain amount of time, or we're required to, in this case with the demand response program, we can be paid to be available to do that. And so when the Cal ISO grid is stressed, we get a notification and we can ultimately respond by reducing some or if not all the desal plant, and by participating in that, we get compensated for that. And so those funds can come in and pay for some of these other items of work. And so there's other programs out there, and there may be other ways to participate in that than our current model. And so the contractor is going to, Hazen & Sawyer is going to help us evaluate those. From there, developing the interactive framework for prioritizing energy projects. So looking at our water resources facilities, as Mr. Hagmark mentioned, water resources is one of, we are one of the largest kind of landowners as far as the city of Santa Barbara goes, and that allows us the potential for putting solar on buildings or over reservoirs, and so that's one opportunity for an energy project. But there may be some other energy projects that are out there that we could participate in. And Santa Barbara, our partnership with Santa Barbara Clean Energy allows us to analyze that a little differently than if we were just a standalone water provider. And then from there, taking that list of energy projects and also looking at our future water resources capital improvement plan, and being able to make sure that we're looking at energy projects while we're doing the design work for those projects, so that when we get to that time, like a Vic Trace project or an Ellister renewal project down the road, that we have a pretty good idea on what that scope might want to be at that time, and we would understand and be able to explain and quantify what those benefits would be. So this is directly out of this is the approach that Hazen is going to be taking for us over the next 12-month project. They'll start by energy benchmarking and all the energy consumption and operations that we have at our facilities. And then from there, looking at the flexible load market potential and energy costs associated with that. They'll also be analyzing our CIP documentation and talking to our operations teams and our engineering teams to understand where we could they could enter that dance. And then finally developing a CIP integration plan, which should be hopefully modifiable and updatable, so that ultimately it stays current for us as we're going through our CIP planning process. And so the goal here is a 10-year plan, but we're looking at a 30-year kind of vision here, because we recognize that energy technology is changing regularly. The regulations, the water regulations are changing, but so are the energy regulations changing. And so we need to be adaptable and flexible in how this plan could be used. And so that kind of the orange boxes above are kind of what our goals are coming out of this study, after this study has been kind of completed, at least this initial one. So our best estimate from working with Hazen & Sawyer so far is that we would be bringing back some documentation for Water Commission, probably in winter or spring of 2025. So give us about 6 to 9 months, I think, and we would have some more information, specifically a draft kind of master plan, and probably some of the tech memos that are going to come out of this that would help Water Commission really understand the value out of this master plan. And so with that, our recommendation or our request is that Water Commission consider recommending to Council award of contract for the Water Resource Energy Master Plan to Hazen & Sawyer.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, more, it's a comment rather than a question. One, I'm really, really pleased to see us looking at the water production energy interface. Right, and Joshua knows it's something that's been very dear to my heart in that regard over time. A commendable effort here. I really like that. I like working with our friend Jefferson Litton over there in sustainability. That also is really good. And my only comment would be, please add the Water Commission action to the council staff report so they know how much we want to do this.
And can you clarify, you mentioned something about a NAWI subcontract or integrating the work that NAWI has done. Can you just clarify that?
Absolutely. Great question, Commissioner Schneider. So the three, well, there's really two energy modeling contractors that have worked for NAWI in the past that are now available to work on the city's project. And so as part of this, they are looking at being brought on as subject matter experts on our system to essentially carry on with where they were working and evaluate further where they kind of left off for NAWI work. And so what that does is, and we offered this to both proposers, was to use those energy modeling contractors, because we look at this as a jump start for them getting up to speed on what we already know, or what somebody in a technical sense already knows. And so specifically, the person who was working on our wastewater treatment modeling and the person who was working on our water distribution are being brought on under Hazen and Soares contract, and we're in negotiations on how that ultimately will pan out from a level of effort right now.
Got it. And that's part of that $300,000 contract?
It'll be a little bit more than that, I think, when the dust settles, but that's kind of where we're at right now.
Got it.
And it help with the cost, because sometimes it seems difficult to spend a bunch of money on this, and will it pan out? And we can already say from the NLX contract, 1 year of participation in that generated $280,000 in revenue. So we are making headways. These things really do makes financial sense, and so I can really get behind this, because it's tough, especially after the rates that we just implemented, trying to spend more money on projects like this. I do think that this will yield and pay for itself multiple times over.
Absolutely. And then I was also wondering about the role of like end uses and the role of conservation and thinking about the water energy nexus. I didn't see it explicitly pulled out here in the slides, and I was just wondering how that fits in.
That's a very good question. I don't know. I don't know if I have a direct answer for that right now. I think I'll have to figure out how to look at the scope a little bit deeper in that from that perspective.
That's good. I think one, obviously the 4 to 9 water uses in terms of is there any messaging to residents about using hot water during that time? I don't know. But then also, of course, using less water allows us to save the energy embedded in that water. And so thinking through that as well. For the energy embedded in the end uses, obviously that the customer is paying for that, but I think there are still sustainability benefits of that. So worth thinking about.
Yeah, it definitely seems like something to partner with Santa Barbara Clean Energy on, right? Because it's all kind of tied together. And it's just a difficult time of the day. You're asking people to not do when, that's kind of the window they get home from work to do laundry, showers, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's an interesting point of how do we drive the home. I think the hot water is a great one, trying to minimize these hot water. Yeah, I think we'll have to explore that some more. I wanted to kind of give you a sense of some of the things that we've been talking about as well. Is just the summer shift is really kind of interesting. One example we've been kind of talking about is the El Estero influent pumps. And of course, I think in the winter you have rain events, and that can fluctuate quite a bit. You wouldn't want to do this, but particularly in the summer months, it's pretty stable. Whether you raise those set points that those pumps come on, you're basically backing up sewage into the collection system. Of course, we want to make sure we never have a spill, but potentially utilizing the capacity in the collection system to try and buffer and minimize the amount of pumping and the height of that pumping, because as it backs up in there, you're having to lift it up not as high to put it into the wastewater treatment process. And so kind of exploring what that looks like. And again, I have no idea if that's going to pan out as a viable option, but those are some of the things that we're kind of digging into, trying to understand, would that be viable from a May to September timeframe? Certainly would not want to do that in December or January kind of stuff. But just seeing, and what would it take to make something like that happen? I think in an agency that was endowed with property, you would put in an equalization basin, is what they call them, just basically a giant reservoir that would capture your wastewater and then would make your treatment process nice and consistent. And we have all these, because wastewater is the same thing, and get this big bulk that comes in, and then it slows down, and then evening comes in again. How can we have all these workarounds that the treatment operators do to kind of deal with that change, but what can we, maybe an equalization basin does make sense. No idea where we would put it, but how big would it need to be?
Right.
We had experimented with using some of the SED basins, because we do have some capacity to take some in and out. That has a couple 100,000 gallons of storage, and utilizing that, but really trying to be creative. And then on the water side, we're been very focused on water quality. So in the water quality discussion, once water is treated, you'd like it to be consumed as soon as possible. It starts to degrade over time. And so we've been keeping our reservoirs operating at lower levels so that we know the water is turning over, and experimenting with changing those set points throughout the day. So you might be running those reservoirs up full during the 8 to 3 time period when there's abundance of solar energy. And then at 4 o'clock, you're really trying to ride on the capacity of those reservoirs to not have to do as much pumping or treatment during that time. So lots of little details to get into. And I think the challenge has always been, I think, connecting the operators with this. Because right now the operators are flying blind. They're focused on water quality or, protection of public health. They have no other metrics by which to fly by, and that's part of this work, is to kind of develop a dashboard that would at least give them a sense of what the energy they're using at the time costs, so that it starts to bring in a little deeper conversation about how to operate the system. So lots to work on. I just want to assure you all that never along this way are we going to sacrifice water quality or public health or the environment along the way, because that is going to be, the concerns that come up is when you start to push the envelope, what are you compromising? And so we will be having an active conversation and want to make sure we put it all on the table, but there's certainly, and I think with this is, a 10-year plan with detail, but we are looking out 30 years. So there's things that we're going to put in here that we're just, maybe the technology doesn't exist yet, but putting it on there as a potential that should be explored in 10 years when we update this a study. So really trying to think about how this study could really guide us, even if stuff isn't possible. I may have talked to you about the Gibraltar. I mean, right now, it's very difficult to kind of dial in deliveries of water from Gibraltar. It's a lot of handwork and an artisan to get the right amount of water delivered. But if we had the ability and automation, you could say, hey, I want delivered between 4 and 9. So we really maximize hydro and we maximize the value of hydro. We're just not there yet. But that could be something, as technology evolves, that could be pretty powerful tool to be added. So,
So just a very simple comment and then a couple of questions. The first simple component is most modern detergents, laundry detergents, don't need hot water. So there's no need for you to use hot water. Most people don't know it, but anyway. So the question is, one, is the timeline. So it's a 1 year. When do you expect to start? When do you expect to start if you get approval from the council and the city?
Okay. Great question, Commissioner Keller. So our track right now would be to go to council in end of August, and probably a kickoff meeting in end of August, early September.
Okay, great. And then the other one is, what opportunities are there for some water commissioners to participate in some of the water cleaning conversations with as the project advances? No, I think there's a lot of interest in it. So,
Absolutely. Mr. Hagmark, you want to take the lead on that one?
Yeah. Great question. Certainly, if we're dealing with a subgroup, that's a little easier. Maybe you could tell me some more about what kind of participation, and that would give me a better sense of, yeah.
Yeah, the idea is a small group, and then, well, we're not that many, but a small group, and mostly listening, and then, as providing our thoughts as we're moving forward, some ideas that people may have, but yeah.
Okay. So potentially draft document reviews. Like I'm
Yeah.
trying to think we'll have like working meetings with them and.
Yeah, not
trying to
every,
figure out-
I think some of the, meetings in which they've already progressed and have some ideas and want to, throw them out there and sort of get some feedback and be able to participate with it, so.
So not to kick off a fight, but what two would you want? What two commissioners would want to be in this?
All right, well, they have to flip a coin, I think.
I have a no volunteering for anything else rule right now.
Okay.
so-
Okay. There we go.
I'd like to
The other thing you could do is just give us status reports as you're going forward under your director's report.
Happy to do that.
And that
Happy to do
that would give us all basically the ability to hear what's going on, ask questions, and then if we want to follow up, we could do that with a smaller group.
Okay. So not what I'm hearing. Not an ad hoc committee here, but I'm happy to provide regular updates.
That would be
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
Or a one-person ad hoc committee.
Wherever you want to go.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments or questions on this? Okay. Do we need to add anything about
Well, we need
this
to,
kind of regular?
Do we need to make a motion? No?
I make a motion to staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Commissioner Cooney,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Keller,
Yes.
Chair Snyder.
Yes. All right, and then we'll move on to item 8, the Water Resources Manager's Report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Snyder, Commissioners, we have our report. There we go. Just wanted to draw your attention to a few things here, primarily that we're selling a lot less water than we had anticipated. And to some extent, after this winter's rains, you can anticipate that was coming. You will note in here, we kind of shifted over to Gibraltar, pulling out of Gibraltar now. Our mindset right now is trying to make room in Gibraltar for next winter. So, and I do have to say, water quality, and this is just so sad to say this, water quality has never been better, especially Gibraltar water. It's beautiful. We're not having to feed any carbon, activated carbon. It's just stunning water. And we have the lake fire, which I don't know how much you guys learned, but it will get into the Gibraltar watershed. If it's not today, it's soon already in the Cachuma watershed. It's basically following the Zaco fire, and it's my understanding from conversations with fire is that it's not going to stop until it rains. They really, this is not one of those fires that they really can stop unless something dramatic changes with the weather. So we're buckling down, getting ready, because this is going to have significant impacts to water quality. And sadly, we've been through this. Sound like a broken record. And, you know, fortunately, we've made the investments in ozone and carbon, activated carbon feed. So we have probably the best available tools to deal with the fire water quality impacts, but still, it's going to drive up costs for water treatment that we hadn't been planning for. So I will keep you up to date on those as those evolve, but yeah. It's not there yet, but it's anticipated that between now and October, November, when it finally hopefully gets under control, we'll
The impacts on water quality are not immediate from the fire. It's more at the aftermath. No?
right. There's a little bit from it depends on the ash,
Yeah.
where the ash is falling, so it will have some impact. But you're right. It'll be this winter's runoff and into the reservoirs that will kind of kick off this challenging water quality issue.
And is there concern about sedimentation too, or are we kind of at our limit with that?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And it's one of those things I'm not sure if this fire will get like some type of FEMA designation. It's really unclear at this point because it's kind of mostly burning in national forests. But if it does get that, you know, I will once again submit for damages to Gibraltar. We certainly lost a lot of capacity from Thomas fire. We were able to recover almost $20 million from SCE for the damages to Gibraltar. But we didn't get anything for the Zaco fire because that had major ramifications last time it burned through here. So anyway, I wish I had better news on that front. But in the meantime, we'll enjoy the wonderful water quality we have right now. Next topic I want to talk about was the appointment of a acting wastewater system manager. So Thomas Welch was acting now. Stepped smoothly into that. He's done a great job. So is Amanda with the succession planning down there. So we've got folks just stepping up to into new roles. And so I haven't jumped on the recruitment on that yet, but I will be getting something out to get that going. But I'm just feeling really confident about the team we got going in wastewater right now. Desal Link. So this is the 224-inch pipeline. It finished construction last August. We had a break on it about a month ago. It's under warranty. We got very lucky. It broke at 6 a.m. in the morning. Very little traffic out. we were losing 20,000 gallons a minute, and it came very close to losing the Cater clear well. It has us all a little spooked, and we are working on what things we need to implement, including automated valves, to kind of put an end to that. So one of the challenges, most of our pipelines, our large transmission lines are steel, concrete lined. Most of them are. When we were looking at designing this pipeline, we were really worried about corrosion, because in particular, we hoped someday to be able to pump permeate up to Cater and blend it up there and really reduce our TDS. So we were looking for a non-corrosive, so we used PVC here. It's certainly rated for this working pressure, but steel doesn't typically fail like this particular pipe did. That steel will get a leak, but not an abrupt failure. It's got very little attention from the media, and in fact, I don't think they got any coverage on it. Fortunately, our ESW and water staff were on it, and were able to get this under control, road closed, and fortunately, our contractor, who's under warranty, Toro, came in and made the repair. We did cut out the section that failed, and we're going to have forensics done on that to find out exactly why. Was it the PVC? Was it the installation? Was it, because each one of these joints, because they're under over 200 PSI at the bottom of the pipeline, so immense pressure, every joint has locked together, so it even has like an added layer of protection. And so trying to figure out what contributed to the failure. This pipe has 300 connections like this, so if there's a problem with the connections, it would be significant. So right now we're digging into that and spending a lot of resources trying to get to the bottom of the ultimate cause and how to protect the city long term with this. So
Where was the break?
it was on Calle Cesar Chavez, just south of Coda. Yeah,
Is it operational now?
it is. Yeah. So I should say it is has been repaired. We have not put it back into service yet. We wanted to do a little more testing before we put it back into service. So, yeah. Let's see. Work session. So next month is our work session. Out of an abundance of caution, I will make it a 3-hour meeting unless I hear otherwise from the commission, just to give us plenty of time for a conversation. I can't say I have something that I think is going to eat up all that time, but we always get into a very active conversation. I will have my whole management team and superintendents there. And I do not believe we will televise it. I think it'll be just as in the past, a little more informal. And we'll go through. I have staff working on developing a highlight of all the projects that they anticipate coming to the Water Commission, but also the ones they anticipate spending a lot of time on this next year. And so we'd be happy to get into any conversations around that. Trying not to be redundant to the annual reports. So I'll work with the chair and vice chair on that to try and make sure that we don't overlap a lot. I really want to kind of stay high level, but if you guys have a lot of questions, we'll have staff on hand to dig into that.
And in this room?
I think good question. We'll work on
In the
that.
past, we've done more. of like
We've
a
done
round
stuff
table.
over there. I think it's great to have it over there if we can get that space. I think it's a little more conducive to a work session.
Yeah, agreed.
But I will let you know, and we'll get that cleared up in the meeting minutes. I didn't have anything else in here unless you had any particular items you wanted to discuss in the. I mean, the other one continues to stand out to me, and we are studying this as I&I. So you can see that in the El Estero influent. Let's skip to that real quick. We just talked about just how little water the community is using, yet our wastewater treatment numbers are considerably higher. And again, that the I&I is really you've seen all the springs coming out on hillsides and stuff. It's just contributing, finding its way into our sewer system. And so we have kicked off of smoke testing. So we've got in their neighborhoods, we're doing it. We're letting customers know you may see smoke coming out of vents and out of the ground, and that's completely safe. We're trying to see if there's any illegal connections, landscape drains, gutters, that kind of stuff connected. But really trying to do more isolated monitoring. We think we found something up in the, what neighborhood is that? It's above San Roque. We might have found an area in there where homeowners had tied their storm drain in, but we're still investigating that. Things like that are not very frequently found, but those are the kind of stuff we're really looking to track down. So more to come on that, and I'm hoping that I&I study will help kind of direct us with that. The other one that we're really working on is a builder's remedy. Are you guys familiar with that? Okay. So city's getting hit pretty hard with that. So projects that even did have approval already, this builder's remedy now gives
I'm
them.
not familiar with this.
And David probably, Commissioner Davis probably do a better job of describing it. If the city takes too long in approving a project, the state has now granted this authority for the developer to kind of move forward with less restrictions on the project. And all of these projects, at least the ones I've seen, none of them have any parking. So they're taking a project that may have had approval and they hadn't started of 20 units, and they're making it 40 and eliminating all parking. So it's really kicked off quite a heated issue. Council heard it the other week, and that was part of the item. People very angry, and rightfully so, that their neighborhood is basically drastically changing, and it's not really reflective yet of autonomous vehicles and the things I think we need. I mean, MTD's trying to gear up for that as well and have, I think, the infrastructure to support mass transit, but building housing, assuming no one's going to drive or require that, is super complicated. And so with that, we're getting pulled along with it. These units are getting much denser, and so wanting to, again, make sure our water distribution system and wastewater collection system is kind of geared to handle that kind of density. And so, I don't know, Commissioner Davis wants to chime in.
You kind of put a bunch of stuff together. You got the high points, right? So the builder's remedy really, when the city was out of compliance with the housing element, as were many other agencies, right? If you submitted during that period, then builder's remedy could come into play. And at that point, all rules are off, zoning-wise, density-wise, or what have you, right? So there was this window when you have a cohort of projects going through under builder's remedy, where in single-family neighborhoods, apartments are being built, where a project was being proposed on the west side or by a cottage hospital for 6 units, it's now 28 units. And so there's this big bulge of projects going there. Then, after the housing element was approved, right, those builder's remedies no longer available for new applications. But now you have SB 330. And if you filed an SB 330 project, and if you comply with that, then you have these timelines, right? And again, if you're not moving forward fast enough, there are consequences. And then there's another law, SB 275, that basically says if you're within a quarter mile of a major transit district, then you don't have to apply parking. Right? So downtown, right, you're going to get all these projects that essentially have no parking whatsoever. So there's a whole layer of things, but you got the high points. Good job.
I knew you'd have a lot of detail on that. That's good. And thank you. And are you still involved with MTD? You're still?
Yeah, and MTD, you don't want the details, but the big thing is that we're still subsisting on COVID funds, which we got from the federal government. But in about 2.5 years, there's a fiscal cliff for most transit agencies that, in fact, one, that funding runs out. But secondly, you're way down in the weeds. Population under the census grew past what it was, 200,000 within the South Coast District area. So we're now a large agency, not a small agency. We're now competing for funds with LA, BART, big agencies. And we were such a good transit agency, we were getting $3 million a year in extra funding because we were so good. That all falls away since we're now moving in the next category. So you put together all of those things. At the same time, all this housing and stuff and demands coming on, we got our job cut out for us in that regard.
No, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate us kind of getting this out in the public forum because, unfortunately, I think a lot of our customers are pretty upset about it. Certainly, not having any local control, not having any say over these projects, and unfortunately, they're going to take it out on our local officials who really haven't. I don't know.
Nothing to do with it.
Nothing to do with it. Yeah, and that's going to make, I think, governing difficult at the local level because it's going to be such a hot topic. So we're doing our best to try and, again, bring in when these projects come in, review them as quickly as possible, try and capture all the issues that we can flag, but it's going to be difficult. And one of the things that we've been talking about is just the capacity issues, like how to tag one project with having to upsize a line downstream. Like it's difficult that one project triggered it, right? So trying to figure out how to pull that in is something we're kind of working on right now. So with that, happy to answer any other.
I have, a comment. Okay. The water wastewater rate increase process. Really difficult issue. And I just really want to commend staff, yourself, Joshua, and all the people that worked on that for such a difficult project. The analysis, the presentations to us and the public, the transparency relative to how difficult the issue was, the responsiveness to the concerns, the professionalism that you expressed in the face of all that. Staff just did an incredible job. Again, and as I mentioned earlier, Commissioner Snyder's comments at council were wonderful. Jeff was also there but had to leave early. I can't say enough about the fact that for such a difficult issue, right, it was handled so well. Well done.
Yeah, definitely was a team effort. I mean, really feel fortunate. I mean, the leadership that we had with the commission and council as well, that was very difficult. No one wanted to do that. And that was the really hard part.
Yeah.
We didn't want to do it, but we couldn't deny what the costs were coming up. And we will have, more on that. We've got the Vic Trace project gearing up and initial cost estimates coming in from that. And higher than we even inspected. So we're going to have some more conversations around this issue, but I appreciate that. I appreciate it because that was a difficult project to get to council.
Is there any public comment?
No public comment.
Okay. With that, we can adjourn. See you all in August.